Okay, it's been a couple of weeks now, so I'm going to do a final update for the Yeet Fighter Street Fight World game. It's almost finished. It's so close to being done. There's just a little tiny bit left to do, but that's all going to be touch-ups, a little bit of tweaking here and there, but a lot has happened since my last video. In the last video I showed the Hadoken Fireball stance, how it was worked out, and then basically the how to come up with that type of joystick motion with an Atari, and to time it and everything. So I've made some changes. Today I'm going to talk about kind of code consolidation, getting rid of redundant code, how to layer things in a more or most efficient way for these types of games. So first I'm going to go over some of the the changes I've made to the code. So the first big change I made to the code was in how the movement counters are done. Okay, so I'm going to go to the most used here. Now, I've done 3 different modes of gameplay. There's the single player using the right side characters, single player using left side characters, and there's versus mode. And I'm thinking the versus mode is going to be the funnest because, you know, it's you know, a person against another person. So programming the moves for the single player modes is going to have a lot to do with random number generation. Your difficulty switch might be set to the random number generator. So if it's on easy, then the random number generator will make certain moves happen less. And if it's on hard, then the random number generator will make the moves happen more. So an example would be if you're playing Street Fighter 2 on easy and you're up against Sagat, and Sagat is doing sweep kicks and a couple of fireballs and maybe a couple of tiger uppercuts, okay, and he's not very hard. But then if you play him on hard, then he'll do nothing but fireballs, nothing but dragon uppercuts, and he's really difficult. So that's how this game is going to be, is random number generation is going to cause the player to react. And I'll probably have an easy and hard mode so that when you're on easy, they'll do less fireballs, less special attacks, and be less aggressive. And then if it's on hard, then they're going to do nothing but fireballs. Now I've added most of the special moves to the game. There are a couple of special moves I still need to add, and I'm running out of room. So I'm getting to the point now where there's so little space left on this 32K bank switching cartridge that I really have to go in and get rid of redundant code. I have to refine my code to get it to be as logical and fast as possible. And so that's part of the fun of this, is figuring out how you can change your code around to get it to work when it's decided that you're running out of space and you can't really get things done. So here I'm in versus mode, which is both players. So once I get all the moves done for versus mode, then when I go to do the one player mode, I'll be cutting back all of the input code from one side or the other. So if you're on left side one player mode, then all of the right side inputs are gone. But instead there's random number generating that will then provide the variables for the opponent to move and to attack. So that's going to cut back significantly on the code in those 2 different banks. I've had them separated into their own banks, and that's the easiest way to handle it. So now there are projectile moves. Here's the left side projectile, and this is a big chunk. Of course, the special moves take up more code than your normal moves. So if you look up here, just a normal punch here is 4 lines of code. It's which direction you're facing. You're not touching any buttons or directions, but then you hit the button. So M is the variable for hitting the button. It has a little debounce phase where if you're not hitting the button, it takes away, and if you hit the button, it doesn't just immediately cause the action there. So it's 4. So when M equals 4, it enables this variable 19 equals 1, which variable 19 are the moves for the left side player. Of course, H, which I've talked about before, is your horizontal indicator. So if you're on the left side facing the right, that's that first line of code. If you're on the right side facing the left, that's the second line of code. And then the 2 lines of code at the bottom are just the counter and how your character is moved. Now, the reason that's there is just because your character scoots forward slightly when they punch, and then they back up, back into their original position. So that's happening with both of the punches, with the left side and right side. Now, so we've got 4 lines of code. Now, when you go down here to the projectiles, you've got this much code. And that's because so much is happening with the joystick. You have to set up so that you're pressing a diagonal on the Atari. And so I've got my variables ready for the diagonal. Now before, when pressing down, the variable counter immediately caused your character to duck. So I had to create that same little kind of debounce style buffer there for pressing down. So now there's just a couple of counts before you actually duck, and that makes it so you can press down and then press diagonal before your character will squat. Then you press to the right. So the first 2 lines of code are that diagonal down and right or down and left to start your fireball. That activates a variable. In this case, I'm using variable 43, which is repurposed from the menu. So you're pressing the diagonal. Then the next 2 are after variable 43 has been activated. It's become variable 2. That enables you to press to the right or the left to finalize that quarter circle. Then it starts a timer, and it does a new 43. So 43 becomes 3 instead of 2. And now is when your Hadoken fireball stance or whatever stance happens. Then it begins a timer that is how long you'll do the stance. And then as it follows through, it's turning off all of your other interactions. That way you're not able to press other directions to manipulate the character while they're doing that fireball throw. And then of course it animates the fireball. Now the fireball I've chosen, I talked about the methods of doing this fireball, and so the methods for doing it before in my last video were, am I going to use a weird manipulated form of a missile, or am I going to use an interruption in the 4 different sequences of sprite layers? And I chose the 4 sequences of sprite layers, and that makes it so I can draw unique projectiles. And so those unique projectiles are in the game now, and I'll show that in a second. So the biggest change of code, and this is a lesson here for anyone that's coding, and this has to do with layering code for the characters. I'll start with the first graphics in graphics 1 to show this. Okay, and I'll go ahead and go up here to where graphics 1 is in the original before it was changed. Okay, I'm almost there. Okay, here we go. Now here's graphics 1. Over here on the right side you can see what it was. This is an older backup, but it's showing us. And then on the left side here, right here we can see what I turned it into. Now this is a good example of code consolidation, of setting up code to be more efficient. it's not in a human thinking type of pattern as much as it's in a logical thinking type of pattern. So on the right we have every character you could be or what they could be doing. And then on the left we have the logical sequence. So if we look on the right, you can see that there are 3 instances where it's going to Ryu moves. Okay, we've got about right here, and here, here, and here, Ryu moves. There's 3 of them, right? But then we have girl moves and we have guile moves, okay? Now if we look on the left, the way I've set it up, because I have the fireballs, that's what Heart, and Sonic, and Fireball are, so those are brand new. But looking underneath that, we have girl moves. Now we have 2 instances of the girl moves, so that's the same as on the right side. We have 1 instance of Guile's moves, that's on the right side. But then because all 3 of the Ryu moves happen, I can just have that there as its own thing. I don't have to have every number for Ryu. I don't have to have C equals 1, C equals 3, or C equals 6. So, because these are all go-tos, that's why it just says the name. On the right, you can see where it says go-to guile moves. That's because it was leaving the loop and it had to be in there. But on the left, you can see it says then. It doesn't have to say go-to because it's just going to look for the label efficiently within the bank. If it has to change banks, then I would have to have it say go-to. And that's a little more efficient. It's smart branching. That's what it's called. So, rather than have C equals 1, C equals 3, or C equals 5, I'll just have it in a logical procession. It's saying if C equals 2, girl move, C equals 6, girl move. Well, it runs right past those if that C variable is not those. And then, of course, if it's 4, it will go to the guile moves. Well, if it's already run past both of those, but variable 19 is still higher than 0, meaning a move is being done, then it knows to go to Ryu moves no matter what. So I can get rid of those two lines of code of 3 and 5, and I don't have to have the C variable express anything because it's already gotten past those. And because variable 19 is already greater than 0 for that, it's going to go to the Ryu moves. And that same thing can be applied for the characters without moves. We have if C equals 2 or C equals 6, again, then it'll go to girl. That's if variable 19 is 0, meaning that no moves are being performed. It's just the character moving around on the screen, jumping or ducking or whatever. And so if C equals 4, it goes to guile. If none of those 3 variables cause it to use that smart branch go to, then it goes to Ryu automatically. So that same pattern. This allows me to eliminate several lines of code. It frees up space, which is desperately needed for this, and it's faster and it's more efficient to do that. This is the logical procession of it here. Because these are go-tos, once it meets one of those criteria, it's going to leave and go somewhere else. So that's not going to work unless you're using go-tos or go-subs to go get your information. And for the most part with go-tos. And this has a lot to do with cycle count. I don't want to waste time, so it's speeding the whole process up. On the right, this was somewhat redundant. Now, as far as thinking goes, in your mind, it's simple and it makes sense what I've done on the right side. But to save room and to make it faster, this gets changed. And because this is it's looking through each of them before it decides where it's going to go, it's actually more logical to do it the way it is on the left side. I did this same thing with character movement. And so this is kind of a lesson in code. If you're using a whole bunch of go-tos and they're all based on meeting the variables criteria, then anytime you have several of the same place that you're going to, then you can group them like this. And that's what I've done. And this ended up freeing up quite a bit of room. Now I'm at the point now where I'm really squeezing out as much as I can out of the code to fit it all into the game. Okay, so I did the same thing with movement. Because collisions and movement were taking up space in each of the modes, the versus player one left and player one right modes, I decided to move some of the collisions into the second background area. So down here is where the collisions are now, and it actually is more efficient because right after it leaves this second background area, it's going to the versus or single right or single left side modes. And so it makes more sense for it to be here. It actually makes the collisions more efficient in the code. It's a more linear way. By the time it reaches this point, it has already prepared all of the data for the characters one time through, and then it's grabbing that data again to loop back around and to get more data. And so it's actually a little more logical to have it here. I may have more of the movements there if I can, but you know, the size of this game, it's maxing out the 32K threshold to where I'm really doing whatever I can to squeeze out any more out of this game. So let's do a little demonstration of what's happened here. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Turn up the sounds. Now, I haven't done new sound effects for the special moves. That's one of the next things I'm going to do, but that's pretty easy. We've got our characters. Okay. And I also need to change the songs around a little bit. I'm going to tweak the music. These are just placeholder songs from other games, except for the title screen song, which I like a lot. Okay. So here we've got the characters. They're jumping around, okay, that's still fine. Now, there's the fireball. That's, okay. We've got special moves. Now you can see when the character is hit, they turn and go back. So now there's a programmed reaction when the characters are struck. See? That's been done. Now as far as fireballs go, we've got this one, which I can see is doing something with the cycle count. Okay. We got this one. Okay. See, that's a whirlwind kick. Got a fan attack. Another type of fireball attack here. I'll go ahead and change to the second character now. Now, the Terry Bogard actually does a flame that is kind of a proximity attack. It's very close to him, but I decided to have it be a more evolved form of that attack and actually go across the screen like the fireballs do. So he's actually got this attack. He has this flying punch attack now too. Okay. Alright, so now his attack. Okay. That one's wrong. That's not supposed to happen. We'll work that out later. Now, of course, you can still do attacks when your projectile is happening, but you can't do a second special move when the projectile is happening. So I'm going to go ahead and put the different original background I've been using, just because I like it better. And go to the versus mode here, and we're going to do level 4. Okay. Now, of course, there's no losing yet, so you can run out of power and it's not going to do anything. That's going to have to change, of course. I've also lengthened reuse punch. I thought it was a little too close, and I might do that with this other character, with Wolf here. I don't know why that's not spinning. Maybe it's the background. There we go. That was the dragon uppercut. See if I can get that to happen again. There we go. Like it had a missile error briefly there. Oh yeah. Let's try that with the main character. There we go. Now this is going to be, this might be a little sacrilege with die-hard fans of the game, but I've actually changed it to where the dragon uppercut is a half circle towards. So it's not the Z-shaped pattern from the original game. You press forward, then down, then diagonal to do a dragon uppercut. I've made it so that you press back. There, it's back and down diagonal, then forward, down diagonal, and right. And it makes it's a quarter circle pattern. There we go. Go ahead and do this from the other side. I can tell I'm getting some cycle count problems too. I think the some of the timers need to be readjusted. And it's not easy with a keyboard. There we go. All right. Okay. And I haven't programmed damage for that yet. So, the game is so close to being done. I have one more special move sequence to program, and then I just need to go in and fine tune everything. I'm going to do the bonus round, change the music, just some little bits and pieces here and there. So yeah, the game's very close to being done. I've also started doing mock-ups of a second game that I'm going to be making after this one's done. So I'm trying to think ahead. Now I won't say I broke my rule, but I had to kind of, because it's been I've been thinking about Star Trek. My youngest son got into Star Trek, started watching the movies, and I started binge watching Star Trek again and getting into that. I watched all of Deep Space Nine and really fell in love with that series. I didn't get to watch much of it when it first came out back in the 90s. And so I started working on a Star Trek themed video game that's going to be something for the future. And that's what's up here I've been toying around with. And it's called, let's see, it's called Space Navy. I don't have a title screen yet. Here's the first screen that's a mock-up. Let's see if I can get this to show up here the way I want it to. There we go. That's a little bit better. Now we've got the bridge, got a ship, and the ship is as far away here as it can. Now this actually looks simple, but there's a lot going on now. I've got full 360-degree movement of the enemy ship. Its location is on the comm in the middle of the screen, which is what the captain is looking at. If you can see a blinking light that's about right here, this blinking light is this ship. The black dot on the side is its level. So as I move my ship, you can see it's moving up and the level is moving up with it. So that's showing that the ship is above or below your level. Right and left, you can see the ship is moving right and left on the screen. And so if I leave the ship now I'm going up, I'm about to flip upside down, and now the ship is coming up from the other side. See? And this is the beginning of creating visible motion for your ship. Now I've got the red alert going on because it's I guess a bad guy ship. I've got my two workers on the bridge. And then I made this, which is a, obviously it's the 1701A refit Enterprise. And this, I'm really pleased with how this turned out. This is using PF heights, which I've been working with kind of artistically. And you can see this is a construction of a combination of missile ball sprites and PF heights rows to create this ship. There's a lot of Atari magic going on here. It's using two screens of PF heights layered over each other, and that creates the brighter gray without being so luminescent that it flickers. The deflector array is and the insignia are both sprites. The added colors for the little deflector under the saucer, that's from the first Sprites missile. The red, I think the red is used as a missile. That's the red light up for the torpedo bay, which means it could actually be used as a real torpedo. and I did that on purpose. The lighting effects on the back and the pylons for the nacelles are a second sprite, and the blue lines for the nacelle and the front blue accent for the nacelle, those are another sprite that's actually been quadrupled in size. So and I've set it up to where I can switch between these very easily. There we go. Now I can easily, because of Atari's zoom feature, I can very easily zoom in on that ship. So I'll go ahead and do that real quick, even though it won't correspond with the indicator on the comm. Later on, when the ship is closer to you and zoomed in, then of course it's going to be further down the y-axis on the comm. And what that's going to do is make the z-axis for 3 dimensions. So right now we have the x and y axes present, but in a 3rd dimension you have a z-axis, which is distance. So you have above you, below you, to the left of you, to the right of you, which encircles you. So that forms the circle around you, which is or above you and below you, which are the x, y axes. But then closer to you and further from you within that circle is the z axis. And we're making all this artificially in math. So as I go down here, to actually show the enemy ship here, we have player 1, that's the enemy ship, and I'm gonna raise the size of player 1 to 1 zoomed size with the new size, and here we go. So now the ship will be larger. There we go. As you can see, the Klingon ship, or whatever you want to call it. And of course I'm skating on the Star Trek theme here. I'm not calling this Star Trek, I'm calling it Star Navy or Space Navy. These are tentative titles. For the program. I don't know if that's getting blurry or freaking out like it does sometimes. So this is one phase of zooming for the ship. And of course, like I said, on that comm down there, right down here, right there, this would actually be closer to the center point with this level of distance. And so one more, yeah, it's getting blurry. I hate it when it does that. I'm just going to back it up slightly. There we go. Now the sprite for the ship is done using the 2 layers, creating 3 colors method that I use for all my games. That's how that sprite has 3 colors. It's still going to move around the same way. This is like I'm moving my ship, and so its position on the view screen is changing. Okay. I'll go ahead and zoom it one more time. You can see the 3 different levels of zoom that can easily be done in hardware with the Atari. It's really just sprite doubling or quadrupling. There we go. Now it's zoomed in really close. That's really as close as I'm going to want it to be. Now, when coming up with the concept for this game, I ended up writing pages and pages of concepts for this game, possibilities. Again, with this design, this is an amalgamation of PF heights, which is an option in the standard kernel with Visual Batari Basic, where you control the width of every row. And so by doing that, I've created this screen. The two people at the helm here and at the comm here, the two guys, two little Starfleet workers or Star Navy workers or whatever you want to call them, are actually. So I'm going to have to change the math too for this because he's too far to the right. And when it zooms, it just zooms, it expands the sprite outward to the right. So the math's going to have to change based on how much it's zoomed. The two characters piloting that are on the little stations there are one character layered and then sprite doubled and then placed in a way where they're seated right there. And they can be animated, but both of them will animate at the same time. But what this is going to allow me to do is have whatever star bases, enemy ships, and stuff like that. And I had all of these ideas for where to go with this concept. I could do. Of course, we have Strategic Operations Simulator for the Atari, which was based on the arcade game. One of my favorite Atari 2600 games. And I'm trying to make sure that I get as far away from that as possible. I don't want this to be just another Strategic Operations Simulator. In my mind, of course, which is way bigger than what I can put in this game, I'm sure, I want interactions, adventures, possibly going to planets, finding items, transporters. I want to be able to go around the ship and look at things, ship-to-ship communication. I want to try to pack it with everything I can, planets, things like that. So, and it looks like that's not out of the realm of possibility with the 32K cartridge. I might try to make this a standard cartridge rather than a super chip cartridge. That would make it slightly cheaper and easier to manufacture the game. But it's not out of the realm of possibility as long as I'm careful. Just because PF Heights allows you to define the size of the rows and then use a very large number of playfields using those same sizes. So I could come up with 5 or 6 different sizes of those playfield heights arrangements for the rows, and then recycle those, not indefinitely, but I can fill up banks with the different possible background screens to use. So being able to leave this bridge and go into a turbo lift or go look at engineering or go to a cabin or go to a lounge or go to a shuttle bay or things like that, or the medical area, all of that's very tempting. That's one of the first things I want to try to do, but I also want interaction. And I've thought about how do I get interaction in this game. I'm thinking about, of course, possibly using a menu with the joystick. I also thought about having cinematic style animations. So just having, phasers and torpedoes shoot out of the front of the ship is one thing. That's cute, and that's not hard. I can do that. But I could have it to where when you fire a torpedo, it has more of a role-playing aspect and switches to this screen and then shows a torpedo fire. Excuse me. Or possibly show it firing and then show the enemy ship and have the torpedo either hit the ship or miss the ship, almost like turn-based strategy. So those are two different ways I could go with it. Now, I like the idea of, just point and shoot, where you see the ship moving around on your view screen and then you just shoot at it. But I think that it would look really good and also be exciting to have those like cinematic style moments. So if it was cinematic, it would shift to this screen of my ship and then show a torpedo or a phaser blast come out of the ship, and then it would show another cinematic view of the enemy ship, and then like really close like this one, and then show it either get hit or missed. And then that would be turn-based, and it'd be based on opening a menu from the bridge screen. So if I'm on this screen, maybe I hit a button. When I hit the button, it opens a menu, and then I can move between the different options on the menu. Possibly repair, command, attack, stuff like that. And then if I want it to be that way, then if you were to choose attack, torpedo, attack, phaser or something, then it would shift to this screen and show the phaser blast and the torpedo blast, and it would be more cinematic. And I could show almost like a movie, damage happening, and have damage reports and repair and stuff like that. So this is the new thing I'm working on alongside this, and this is just a mock-up. Yes, it's functional. I mean, I can move around, and the ship is moving around. See, I'm flipping around. I'm going. There we go. I just did a loop. Now this is with the ship just sitting there. So I guess whatever positional thrusters would move your ship around. This is not impulse drive active, or obviously not warp drive active. And so there's going to be screens of stars moving. For warp drive, there's going to be screens of the ship moving on its own and you moving towards and away from the ship. And that's all positional math that goes into it. So this is one of the new things I'm working on, and I like it a lot. So thanks for watching, keeping up with my videos. Yeet Fighter is so close to being done. This is the last video for Yeet Fighter that I'm going to make, but I will probably continue to make videos of the newer games as I make them. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and it helps me to kind of focus inwardly on how to do things. As I'm talking about this, it helps to put ideas in my head about how I may do something in the game itself. And I got less views with my last video. That's fine. I'm not doing this to get a ton of views or to become a YouTube influencer sensation or something. I'm doing this because I love it, and anybody that's into programming or Homebrew Atari games, maybe they'll get an idea, or this will influence or teach them, or they can be interested in it, So it's purpose driven, and the purpose is not popularity. But on that note, the 2600 Plus has come out, and I'm probably going to be getting one pretty soon for testing and for playing, especially HDMI out. But I've heard that it, in its initial form, does not support 7800 Homebrew. That sucks. But it does, however, support much of the Homebrew that's out, and they're already doing updates. I heard that the 7800 buttons are actually flipped, which sucks, because only a handful of games really use 2 buttons on the 7800, but for those games you don't want to have to teach yourself to do everything backwards. And I really don't like it if you're programming an emulator for a game, you need to make sure the buttons are in the right place. And I've actually had this happen before. I got an emulator for a like an AtGames arcade classic system. I really love the system. Okay, I have it sitting here, and I play it a lot. I did some big firmware update and changed the software so it can play all systems. And I'm thinking, yes, I can play Nintendo. I've got my Sega 6-button pad hooked up, and the Nintendo buttons are reversed. And anybody that plays Nintendo a lot knows that that is not doable. You cannot switch the buttons on a game like that. And to think that somebody that's programming this emulator is like, oh, this is this button, this is that button. You don't know. if you don't know what sequence the buttons go in, and you're programming an emulator for that video game system, what are you doing? You need to make absolutely sure that those buttons are in the right order. So that was a really big foul on the part of whoever programmed the emulator for 7800 for the 2600 plus. The buttons can't be reversed. Granted, only a couple of games for the 7800 really need or use the 2-button functionality, but you need those buttons to be in the right place. Now, I guess they're going to be having firmware updates that enable, possibly enable 7800 Homebrew, fix the problems with other Homebrew that didn't work properly, fix issues that people have reported, and so the 2600 Plus is becoming, you know, a very popular, I won't say it's the de facto way to play 2600 just yet, but it could be approaching that realm with proper firmware updates. And I'm definitely interested in it. I want to program for it, and I'm sure they'll work everything out. I imagine eventually with the right firmware updates, it's going to be the best because it's easy HDMI out. It's 2600 and 7800. With 7800 Homebrew, it's going to be a great development platform, and it's going to be something people can buy newer, better games for. And they're just endless 2600 Homebrews coming out even still. So I'm obviously on board with that, and I hope that a lot of 2600 games come out. And I'm just going to say it. I'm not trying to sound big-headed or anything, but my 2600 games look better than any 2600 games that have ever been out. And I already know that. I'm not trying to toot my own horn too much, but if you have found a 2600 game that looks as good as my 2600 games, please show it to me, because I'd like to see. I haven't seen any game yet for the 2600 that looks as good as my games. And I'm doing this on purpose. I want to be the shot in the arm for that system that gets people to look at it and play the games on it. I don't want such an isolated and small community with such a large amount of ignored homebrew and a large amount of fan-based efforts that go unseen. I would much rather people go, I didn't even know the 2600 could do that. And that's really what I'm doing here is showing that it can actually do more than what any... And these games, this right here looks like something from an 8-bit computer. I know you have never seen that on an Atari 2600. That has never been done on a 2600. Okay, and you have never seen that bridge scene on a 2600. No one has ever seen the graphics and gameplay that I'm doing on Yeet Fighter on a 2600. This is all brand new, and that's what my effort is. So hopefully, you know, people will pay attention to this. I love this though. I totally love that. And part of the inspiration was this Christmas I made my son a little Star Trek figure that's him as a Starfleet officer. This is a BlueBrixx. It's kind of a European brick company, enterprise. And I built this for Christmas. This was my gift for Christmas. And yes, I asked for it. Once I saw that this existed, I said, I want that. So this was what I got for Christmas. I love the 1701A. It's my favorite. It's my favorite ship of all time. My on level with the Neo Constitution class. Those are my two favorite ships. Are the A refit and the Neo Constitution class. Which I really love this ship. I love this model. I'd like to do something about the little dots on the top. I'm thinking I might get some pieces off of eBay or something and fill this in with small slanted downward angle pieces, because I like to try to get rid of as many of the visible dots on my brick models as I possibly can. I think that's a worthwhile pursuit on your brick models, is to try to get rid of as many of those visible dots. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I have several Lego models. I really love building Legos. I have a Lamborghini and stuff. If you want, I'm not an advertisement for Temu, but Temu has the best deals on brick models. And then I found out when I looked up BlueBrixx that there's a European website that has all these BlueBrixx models, and that's also a place to get a lot of the ones that are available on Temu from Mold King and from some of those other popular Lego copies. These are all Lego compatible, Lego competitor model companies. Look at that. I mean, I totally love it. This is a really great model. It's my favorite of all time, ever. So this was also part of the inspiration, was I got this and thought, hey, I could do something like that on the screen here. So that was part of the inspiration for this model here. So if you're commenting, paying attention, tell me what you think. Update me. Tell me, hey, do that, don't do that. This is how you should do it. Give me some ideas if you have any. And thanks very much, whoever's watching. And please try to keep up.